This is the Marketing Podcast Network.
Stories influence, teach, and inspire us. But what about the storytellers who create them? Uncorking a Story profiles storytellers to uncover how their background and life experiences influence the stories they create. We learn what motivates them, their path to success, and what fuels them to keep creating. It all starts by asking one simple question: where does your story begin? Welcome to Uncorking a Story. Now here's your host, Mike Carlin.
Well, hello and welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm excited to introduce you to, let me just redo that because I just messed it up. Sometimes I speak over myself and it just, my tongue doesn't want to work. My mind works faster than my tongue. So here we go. Hello and welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm excited to introduce you to Lygia Day Peñaflor. Lygia is the author of All of This Is True and Unscripted Joss BYRD. She also teaches young Hollywood stars on television and movie sets. Her students have included cast members of Gossip Girl, Boardwalk Empire, Spielberg's West Side Story, and others. She joins me today to talk about her career and latest novel, Creep, a love story. I'm very curious about that title. Welcome to Uncorking a Story, Lygia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So I have a question, Lygia, the one I ask everybody as we begin. Where does your story as a writer begin?
I wanted to be a published author from a really young age, but I have a really specific memory of watching the movie Stand By Me. Do you know Stand By Me?
Oh, sure. I know it well with, God, that's where they find the dead body, right?
Yes.
It was an all-star cast. One of the Coreys, I think, was in it.
Corey Feldman.
Corey
River
Feldman.
Phoenix.
Okay. And then
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yes. And Jerry O'Connell.
And Jerry O'Connell, yes, who looks a lot different now than he did back then.
And the great Kiefer Sutherland as well.
Oh, he's one of my two favorite Sutherlands.
Yes. So I remember watching Stand By Me at a friend's house with my group of middle school friends. We were watching it on VHS. And there's the part where River Phoenix's character, Chris, is sitting with Will Wheaton and Geordi, and they're around that campfire. Do you remember the scene?
Sure.
And Chris tells Geordi, "You're going to be a great writer someday." And I related to that. I felt like that was going to be me. And I also felt like, because I was with my middle school friends and we were that age as the boys in the story. And I thought, I am the writer in this group of friends. So I could relate to him. And I knew that someday I was going to do this and that I wanted to be a great writer. And I remember too, in middle school, at the end of the year, we got these yearbooks, and they were just kind of cheap yearbooks, and they were not hardback, just sort of paper. And we were all signing each other's yearbooks. And I asked my friends if I could take theirs home because I wanted to write something really profound and important in them. I was not going to be a have a good summer kind of girl. But I went through their yearbooks and there was not enough space for me to write all the important things I wanted to say about middle school. So I literally took a piece of paper, a blank sheet of paper, and glued an extra piece of paper into each of my friends' yearbooks so that I would have enough space to write in it.
Now, are you still in touch with these people?
Not really, no.
Because I'd be curious to know if they kept the yearbooks and if you remembered anything you said in them.
I said a quote from Stand By Me in those yearbooks. And I wrote, let me see if I remember it. I never had friends later on like the ones I did when I was 12. Jesus, does anyone? Do you remember that line?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even know that movie was based on a short story by Stephen King until much later.
Yeah, The Body.
Yeah.
It's from I have that book. I have the the movie tie-in cover.
Interesting.
And it's with like 3 or 4 other short stories in it.
Yeah. So you wanted to be a writer from a young age. Well, what did you wind up doing before you were a writer?
I'm a teacher as well. And you said in the intro, I teach kids on movie sets.
Yeah.
So in California, they call it a studio teacher. In New York, you're the set teacher. So I am the academic school teacher for young actors who are working on film and TV and also Broadway in New York. Since they're not in school because they're working, I'm the school teacher. It's
interesting. You mentioned wanting to be a writer. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, specifically because they didn't have to go to school.
Well,
and I didn't know there were people like you who were teaching them on set.
You would have been so disappointed.
How did you get involved with teaching young actors?
I was teaching in a public school and I had enough of it. And I knew that this job existed. So I just thought, why not me? And there was an agency that was hiring and I went through them. And now it's been years, so I could sort of get work from different avenues. But yeah, I knew it existed and someone had to do it. So I made that someone me.
Yeah. So what's it like teaching on a movie set or a TV set?
Oh, it's hard hours because you're not teaching school hours. You're on filming time. And I have to grab kids for 3 hours a day in chunks of time. It has to be 20 minutes for it to count as school. So between hair and makeup and rehearsal and shooting and lunch and all that, the kids are in school.
Yeah.
So I always say that the hardest working people on a set are the children because they do the job of adults as far as acting, but then they also go to school. When you're an adult actor, you can take a nap if you want. You can have your friends or kids with you and play or do whatever you want. But the child actors, they're working all day long.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
So when did you wind up writing your first book?
I think it was 2010, 2011. I remember workshopping my first book at a Southampton conference out on Long Island.
Yeah.
And it was 2011. And my teacher was Meg Wolitzer, who's a fabulous writer and terrific teacher. And I workshopped my first book with her.
Yeah.
And that was the book that got me my agent.
Okay. How important was kind of going to a workshop like that for you?
It gave me a sense of what other people were doing and how my writing was compared. Because when you're writing, it's so solitary and you really have no concept of what anyone else is doing. So it was helpful to talk to people and to hear everybody's work and to get feedback on mine to see what was working and what wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people think about writing as a solitary process, which of course it is, but there is sort of a networking side of it that, a lot of people don't really know about, I think, why it's so important to go to, those conferences, those events, meet people, be mentored, get your work in front of people. And then, eventually, as you said, that's the way you wound up, or you wound up getting your agent after that, it sounds like. But there's a whole process to it that I don't think a lot of people get, certainly when I was writing my first book, I had no idea how important it was to go to those kind of workshops and writers conferences, just to have the opportunity to pitch or to practice your pitch and to do some networking and to get some feedback, because you write, you're alone and, no one reads it. Maybe friends and family read it. And of course, they're probably not going to tell you the truth.
I never did that. I never did that. I never had friends or family read it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So what was your big learning coming out of that, first publishing process?
Well, the book that got me my agent didn't end up selling. So I had to go back and write a whole other book, which ended up being my first published novel.
Okay.
So that's soul crushing the first time around, because I got my agent really quickly. So I thought, oh, I'm on a roll. This is going to be smooth sailing. And then she pitched that book for 6 or 7 months and it didn't sell.
Yeah.
So she's like, well, what else are you doing? And I was like, I have to do this again. I'm like, honestly, I'm not doing anything. I'm waiting for this book to sell. So yeah, I had to do it again.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 other P's, in addition to publishing, it's, perseverance and persistence.
Mm-hmm.
Which will pay off hopefully one day for authors. But what can you tell me about Creep, a Love Story?
Creep. Yeah, Creep is about the most popular, most beautiful couple at Holy Family Catholic High School. It's their love story told through the eyes of the sophomore who is stalking them. So we watched this beautiful couple, Lainey Villanueva and Nico Fiore, who are seniors, and we get to know them, but only through the eyes of someone else.
So that's someone,
Raffi, who's the sophomore, ends up being more than obsessed with them and ends up spiraling into some very shady behavior.
Interesting. Well, I'm captivated by this idea. Just having 3 kids who just left high school a couple of years ago. We have triplets. So it's like I got to re-experience high school all over again, through them, which was kind of interesting. And actually went to my old high school, which is sadly no longer with us because it closed the year they graduated. But yeah, it's an interesting time in one's life to write about, I think.
Yes, definitely. And it came about because of an instance that happened to me when I was a senior. So yeah. I was at my locker one day, and a girl I never knew came up to me. She was a young and kind of an oddball. And she just came up without any hello or introduction, just said, "You have the cutest boyfriend." And I kind of got a little chill, and I said, "Thank you." And I closed my locker and walked away. And I never forgot her. For some reason, this moment stuck with me. And I churned it over and over in my mind all these years. And she became this protagonist.
Interesting.
Creep. Yeah.
It's like that seed was planted. I mean, I don't know how long you've been out of high school.
Long.
But it's, probably more than a couple of years. That seed was planted a while ago, and it was such a brief interaction that, anyone else might have just like written off. But for some reason it kind of stayed with you, and it inspired something later on. I just talk about that a little bit more if you could.
Yeah, I didn't let it go. And you were asking me about you mentioned about the title. You were interested in the title.
Yeah.
That is from the Radiohead song Creep.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have that in my head for the rest of the day.
Well, every time I heard the song, I would remember that girl. And it was a reminder of the story, and it would make me think about it again and create these scenes in my head. And then I would eventually come up with Lainey and Nico and Raffi's behaviors, and I would have these scenes rolling through my mind every time this song came on. And eventually I was ready to write it.
So when you did write it and it was accepted for publication, did you consider dedicating the book to this girl who who inspired it so many years ago?
It is dedicated to her.
Oh, is it really?
In fact, so that's a good question. Yeah.
Oh,
it
wow.
Is dedicated to her.
Is that her real name?
Oh, I don't even know her name.
Okay, I couldn't see, so I was assuming that there was a name in there, but
I don't even know her name. Actually, this is from my book launch. I had my guests sign my book.
Oh yeah,
while I was
like a
signing their
yearbook.
book. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool.
But the dedication is when I was a high school senior, a starry-eyed freshman crept up to me at my locker and said, "You have the cutest boyfriend. Thank you, starry-eyed freshman. This is for you."
Wow. If you could find her today, what would you say to her?
I'd say thanks and have this.
Here you go.
And sorry.
That's right. I imagine she's probably still being creepy somewhere.
Probably. Can't stop a creep from being a creep.
No, but I think the lesson there for me anyway, and I've talked to this with some other authors is, for example, I talked to Nita Prose, who wrote The Maid. And, that book came about because she had a kind of a run-in with a hotel maid. She came into her room, kind of at an odd hour, and the maid was there, like holding her like sweaty sweatpants in her hand or something like that.
Okay.
And it just like, she didn't let it go. Like, who was this woman? What's this woman be thinking of me? And she started writing the prologue to the book on the plane home from wherever she was. So like these like everyday moments that I think a lot of people would just write off, for some reason authors, see something different in them, or they have more meaning for them.
Right.
Do you think that's a trait or like a superpower that authors have that non-authors don't possess?
I don't know if it's because we just notice things more, or we don't let it go, or is it that we end up doing something with it? Maybe everyone has moments that they cling to, but we feel the need to create something from it.
Right. We have the need or the ego to and to share them with
Right.
Hopefully millions of other people.
But I'm also fascinated by the idea that you could change someone's life with such a small encounter, and maybe you don't even remember it, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Like someone changed the course of my life with that one comment, and maybe she doesn't even remember that at all.
Yeah.
And then that concept crept into creep, because this couple walks into Rafi's life and she is so captivated by them, by such tiny little interactions that she has, and they don't even notice her. But yet she's forever changed.
Yeah.
Because of this. Oh, they talked to me. He said this to me. She said that. And she holds on to it like it's gold. And they're just breezing through life, probably never giving her a second thought.
Yeah. But I want to go back to this notion of kind of holding on to things a little bit, and having those things influence you, and I'm curious from your point of view as a teacher, because I think back to all the wonderful teachers I had growing up, and certainly I could point to some of them and say, wow, this person said something on a certain day that changed my life. And I've actually tried to track some of them down just to tell them that. Have you ever had that experience? Has a former student come back to you and say, you said something to me, or you did something, and you played this role in my life that put me on a different course?
That just happened to me recently.
Really?
Through Instagram.
No kidding.
I had a few students say, "Oh, I was looking for you and I found you." And then so many of them started to show up because they're like, "Oh, it's Miss Peñaflor." And then they tagged each other, and then they were all in my DMs. "Thank you so much for all you've done for me." And it was great. Yeah, I love when that happens.
Yeah,
hi guys. I bet they're watching.
Let's hope so. Yeah, that's gotta be a cool thing. I wound up tracking down my 4th grade teacher.
Oh.
And she's a much older person. I mean, she was kind of old back then. But
you thought she was.
I did. Well,
she was also probably not old then.
She was a nun, and
nuns are always old.
They're always old, right? I mean, when's the last time you saw like a young nun?
Did you see that comment on Twitter? Somebody wrote, nuns are real. I thought that they were made up for horror movies.
I can
I
assure
laughed at
you,
that for hours.
you know, I've had some bad ones, but I've had some good ones too. And she was one of the good ones. And I tracked her down. This is right when I first started the show, before I even focused it on authors. I actually interviewed her.
Oh, nice.
She's in one of the first 10 interviews of the show. Just an amazing person. You're not kind of not what you think about when you think of nuns, but I did. I mean, I tracked her down. I found her. She was retired and spent her days volunteering at a soup kitchen in Chelsea in Manhattan. And I worked the soup kitchen with her one day, and then we went back to her little residence, and we recorded an interview. It was fascinating. But
I love that.
you know, teachers, they do have such an impact on our lives. Good ones and bad ones, I'd say. But
that's true. And my English teacher signed right here. He came to my book launch.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so it's goes both ways. You know, I appreciated my teachers, and now that my students are contacting me.
Yeah. So as we sit and record this, are you in California or?
I'm in New York.
You're in New York. So you live in New York.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah.
Long Island.
No, the island. What part of the island?
In Nassau County, North Shore.
All right. Very cool. Yeah. I'm across the Sound in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the next time I go down to the water, I'll wave down at you. Well, I always like to get to know my guests a little bit, and one way I do that is through pop culture. So I'm curious, Lygia, what when you were growing up, what were some of your favorite TV shows?
Love TV. I love this question. I love TV. I am a huge Degrassi franchise fan since Degrassi Junior High, Degrassi High, Degrassi Next Generation. Love it. Love it all.
Yeah, I think my kids watched the later version of Degrassi because I don't remember watching it as a kid. But I know I'm pretty sure my kids watched it, whatever reboot there was or something like that. But, that was Disney, right?
No, it was PBS.
Was it PBS? I don't know why I was thinking Disney.
It's Canadian, in fact.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, that explains why they were drinking beer when they watched it. Okay.
It's Canadian, and then I guess here it was PBS.
Okay. Got it.
And then for some reason it wasn't cool, and people would just like pretend they didn't watch it, and you'd go to school and people would whisper about it and be like, "Oh, you watched that? That's so lame." But everyone loved it secretly.
In addition to that, what do you remember? What do you remember watching?
90210.
Oh, that was the best.
Felicity, Dawson's Creek. I love all of that. Yeah,
I love 90210. So 90210 started my junior year in high school, I think. All I remember was I graduated with them.
Okay.
So I graduated and went to college with them. I had my first job with them.
Yeah.
You know, even David Silver, who they somehow they bumped up a year so he could graduate with the rest of them and stay in the series.
That's so realistic.
I know. Well, you know, it was West Beverly High, I guess, you know, money talked, who knows? But yeah, very cool. I was a big 90210 fan.
Yes, love it.
To rush home back to my dorm Wednesday nights to watch that. And then, of course, right after that was Melrose Place.
Okay.
So had to watch that. What about music? What were you listening to growing up?
Oh, I loved the Go-Go's. I was a big fan. I loved U2. And I don't know. We had WDRE and WLIR.
Absolutely. I remember DRE 92.7, if I remember correctly, right?
92.7 WDRE.
Yes.
Long Island. And now they have a version on iHeart.
Oh, do they really?
Dare, yeah, DARE.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Dare Radio, and it's the same. And do you remember they used to have like the Screech of the Week, like Thursday night, it would have like the top 5 songs of the week or something. I love that station. It was just the new wave stuff of the 90s.
And then LIR had Larry the Duck, if I remember correctly. Do you remember that DJ, Larry the Duck?
I do.
I remember because I was a big metalhead back in those days.
Okay.
in the 80s and 90s, but I was dating somebody who was big into the alternative music scene. So I got exposed to a lot of it, and I used to pretend not to like it. But then, what I realized is it wasn't half bad, but I had to be cool and complain about it. So
why did we have to be cool?
I don't know. I would probably tell myself, try to be less cool.
Nowadays, it's cooler to be uncool, which I love. People just own the things that they like now.
Yeah.
And enjoy nerding out over stuff. And that's how we connect, I think.
Yeah. I could nerd out over so many things.
Yeah.
And I frequently do. Like if you told me that one of your favorite TV shows was Columbo, we'd still be talking about Columbo right now. So
there you go.
Thinking about writing, I know you've kind of, saw yourself as being a writer from, a very young age. In what ways, if any, do you consider writing to be therapy for you or therapeutic?
Do I though?
Oh, I don't know. This is my assumption.
I used to journal as a teen just to get all my angst out and all my secrets. I don't do that now. So I guess the fiction is a way of living out things that you never got to do, or working out issues that you aren't able to talk about to real people, and get them out through characters instead of yourself in real life.
Yeah, I always like to think or say that there, even though fiction is made up for the most part, there's a fair amount of truth in fiction. You could still get out original ideas and work out some things. I mean, God knows I've tried to work out some things through characters and plots in the fiction that I've written in the past.
I think it's true. That's true of the good fiction. If there is truth in it and there's honesty behind it, then that's why it's compelling and that's why it's good. And you can tell when this is just a story and I'm just writing this to write a story. There isn't a deeper layer to it.
Yeah.
I think you can feel it when it comes from the heart, when there's something real behind it. Even if it is a comedy, or even if it's horror, or any genre, even probably like sci-fi. If it comes from a real place, then it reads far better.
Yeah. Speaking of stories, is there a story behind that typewriter over your left shoulder, or no?
It was a gift from a very good friend after I published my first book.
Oh, that's sweet.
And he made sure to get it working. So he brought it to some shop that does that restores. And it's beautiful, right?
It's wonderful.
It works. It works beautifully. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
He gave me extra ribbon and everything.
What a thoughtful gift.
Yeah.
That he should get the Thoughtful Gift Award of the year. I do. I'm one of these people who believes that we all have an inner child inside of us, and I'm curious, A, if you agree, and B, if you do have an inner child, how you feed that inner child.
Oh, we definitely have an inner child, all of us. I don't think that I hide mine or grew out of it or deny my inner child. I think I'm always the same person as I was when I was a kid. My priorities change and my opinions will grow and change, but inside I feel like the same girl. So I like to do all the things that I loved when I was a kid still. I'll roller skate still. I fly trapeze, which is something I wanted to do as a kid. I used to do gymnastics and I was a dancer growing up, and I cheered. And so now I took that and put it into flying trapeze. So I don't really let go of that child. I do what I want.
I'm not scared of heights, but I'm scared to death of attempting anything on the trapeze. I used to watch like Circus with the Stars or whatever growing up, and I would see these people. I'm like, oh my God, I'd be scared to death to do something like, I don't know if it's the timing, if I don't trust the person who's supposed to catch me. I don't know
you
what
have to
it is.
trust them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't trust anybody.
big
That's
deal.
the problem.
You have to trust them. Circus of the Stars, though. Wow. I love
Yes.
it.
Yeah. I just pulled that one out.
Well, speaking of, just to bring it all back together, Brian Austin Green was on Circus
Was he really?
with the Stars. Yes. And so is Shannon Doherty, I believe.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was looking up trapeze videos and I found them on that show.
That is great. There was Circus of the Stars. I remember there was Battle of the Network Stars too, like
That
way
was
back in the day.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Back when we only had 3 channels and that could get a rating.
And they'd be in the pool, the Olympic pool, like in a raft.
Right.
And the big draw was the what is it called?
The tug of war?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like the rope pull. No, it's
No, they'd
the
all have
tug
like
of
matching,
war.
they'd have matching jumpsuits and everything too. Like,
Yeah.
Like they really thought it out.
It was always like Nancy McKeon and Scott Baio.
You know, Scott Baio's career went in a different direction. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine who was a PA on Charles in Charge.
Okay.
And the first day of work, he's in a meeting with Scott Baio. Scott Baio asks him to get tea. And he's so nervous. He brings back the tea and then spills it all over him, spills a cup of hot tea all over Scott Baio.
Wow.
And, he didn't lose his job, but I don't think he was ever asked to get tea again. That's for sure.
Yikes. Who's worse off, that guy or the guy on New Year's Eve who forgot to bring the tea to Mariah Carey?
Oh, I'd probably say the latter.
Yeah. That was a bad night.
Not a good night. Not a good night. Yeah, Queen of Christmas, my ass. She was probably pissed off. If you could go back in time, and whisper some words of advice to your younger self, maybe it was, that middle schooler who was writing volumes in someone else's yearbook. What kind of words of advice? What kind of words of advice would you give your younger self?
I think I had a lot of confidence as a teenager, probably more so than I have now. And I would probably thank her for that, because I started from a place of belief and thinking that I could do something like publish 3 books. So I want to say thank you to that girl, that teenager who just didn't know any limits and felt, yeah, I'm going to do that someday. I look to her. I think that in a way she's like a hero of mine. And I write books and I publish because I feel like I owe it to her to do the things that she wanted to do. So I would say thanks and hold on to that.
Yeah. What would you write in her yearbook?
I would have to paste more than 1 page probably in that girl's yearbook.
There you go.
And have a great summer.
We'll be best friends forever.
No, but it has to be like too good, like number 2, to be forgotten.
Oh, that's great. Well, the novel is Creep, a Love Story. Where can people pick this up?
Anywhere novels are sold.
Oh, there you go. And of course, I always like to give a plug for independent bookstores.
Yes.
So certainly go to your independent bookstore and ask for it, because I'm sure if they don't have it in stock, they will get it for you.
At Bel Canto Bookstore in Long Beach, California, they will send you a copy with a signed book plate.
Very cool.
That's Bel Canto Books in California.
Oh, I love Long Beach. I've been there many times. I had way too much fun in Long Beach one night, but that is a story for another time.
Oh.
We'll
talk after.
Yes, if people want to get in touch with you, do you have a website? Do you have social media handles you could share?
I'm at Lygia Day on Instagram and Twitter, And my website is lygiadaypenaflor.com.
There you go.
And you can watch me fly on trapeze on my Instagram.
Oh, let's go. Let's absolutely. We'll post some links to that in the show notes. How does that sound?
Cool.
Because I think that would be, I think that would be fun. Well, Lygia Day Peñaflor, thank you so much for letting me uncork your story. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Great meeting you.
Thanks for listening to Uncorking a Story. If you'd like more information about today's guest or to find out more about Mike, go to uncorkingastory.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in every week to hear Mike Carlin uncork a new story.